What's up guys, Going Wrong Zone here. So, the honeymoon period for the Division 2 is kind of over and a lot of concerns have been coming out, complaints, criticism and so on. But if there's one thing I really want to praise Massive on, and I think it was really important to share this with you guys, is that their communication has been spot on. Despite all the errors they've been making, besides the fact that, skill builds are broken, besides the fact that some talents don't even work properly, and so on and so forth, regardless of whether they've been making the right or the wrong decisions, their communication has, to me at least, been excellent. And if they continue to keep this up, there is no reason why you shouldn't continue supporting the game. Again, whether you agree or disagree with their decisions, I've disagreed with many of them, is another matter entirely. What I'm talking about here is their level of communication. I'm sure a lot of you have already seen this community update forum post that came out on their official Ubisoft forums, titled Update 2.0 and beyond. And while there's quite a boatload of meat here to go through, I want to draw your attention to the very last segment. Lastly, we want to address some balancing concerns from the community with insight from the development team. And here they address the main concerns that all of us are having on our minds. Skill builds and tank builds, and what's the deal with these things just not working properly yet. They explain what's going through their heads, they explain their thought process, they explain what they're trying to achieve, their goals and their vision for it. Again, whether or not you agree with what they're saying is another matter entirely. But the very fact remains is they explain and they take the time and the effort to explain it. This is extremely important and unfortunately exceedingly rare in today's gaming development scene. One look at the other side of the catastrophic failure that is Anthem over at BioWare, and you can already tell that the difference is night and day. I myself personally come from a background of WoW, right? World of Warcraft, and I used to create a lot of content for World of Warcraft. And over there, without any exaggeration, I can tell you that Blizzard doesn't give two shits about what the player base think. They say they do, but they do absolutely nothing to prove that they do. In fact, they do the entire opposite.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
Changes are basically implemented with no rhyme or reason, or very often worse. Tons and tons of good feedback, months of feedback in fact, is straight out ignored in favor of their own, in that somehow they know better than everyone else and everyone else should just shut it. It's one of the very big reasons why the game is dying, and I don't think anyone can deny that the game is dying. And in here, the Division 2, I can see that the exact opposite is actually happening. I feel like I'm communicating with another human being. Again, I know I sound like a broken record, but it doesn't matter whether I agree with that human being or not. But what's most important is that I feel like I'm being heard. And here the devs show me that my concerns are being heard. They know that they have to do something about it, and they're trying to explain their reasonings and their logic behind the changes that they're trying to make. This is not only seen in this specific forum post, but it's also seen every time they do a state of the game kind of Q&A thing, which is done very, very frequently, and props to Massive for that. But okay, since I mentioned it, and talking about all these buffs and nerfs and whether or not developers should listen to the community or not, let's delve a little bit into that. The main form of feedback for this game has clearly been Reddit, with YouTube probably being a close second, and then the other official forums following them. Many people will say that Reddit is the vocal minority, which is perhaps true from a statistical point of view of the overall player base, the number of people who have bought the game and who are playing the game, versus the actual number of people on Reddit. But let's not forget quality over quantity here. The people visiting and posting feedback on Reddit and YouTube videos and so on, they care very much about the game. They are the ones who are thinking about the game all the time. They are the ones who are surfing, writing, or replying, or reading Reddit posts while they're at work, while they're having dinner, or even while they're taking a dump. I know you guys do that, because I do too. If you want to ignore them because the other 90% of the player base hasn't spoken out about skill sets and you think that everything is fine, then that's a very dangerous error to make. I get that a balance has to be met out between casuals and hardcore players. But again, I'm going to draw from my World of Warcraft experience. please don't make WoW's mistake of trying to please everyone. It will only end up disappointing everyone. I hope Massive makes sure that they understand who their core demographic is. Their core demographic, the ones that are making content about the game, whether it's on Reddit or on YouTube or even on Twitter, tweeting out tweets about the game. Their loyal customers who are out there recommending the game to their friends, buying the game for their friends, who are putting in hours and hours and hours into the game. I hope Massive understands what they like, what they dislike, and then make an informed decision in respect to the changes that they're going to make in the game. For example, gear score dropping below 500 gear score. This was intentional, but after hearing player feedback, we will look into potential changes in the future. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the community in this matter in such a speedy matter. Again, my own assumption, but I don't think this issue affects the majority of the player base. I don't think 90% of the player base that's actively playing the game and enjoying the game at a casual pace would be concerned about this too much. But this shows to us, and thank you so much for that you are listening, that you are reading, and that you are responding. And so thank you so much for that. If Massive keeps this up, I would have no qualms about supporting this game till the very end. And just another thing about statistics, right? Game developers sometimes have to rely on statistics. But I hope that they don't just make knee-jerk reactions of buffs and nerfs based on these statistics. And I know this is a hot topic on Reddit right now, so I just wanted to cover it. Statistics only tell you half the story. Their statistics from a game developer's point of view will tell them, for example, and this issue I'm a bit touchy on and I've made a whole video about it, but I'm going to talk about it again, that the Model 700 sniper rifle was being overused. So what did they do? They nerfed it without trying to find out the deeper reasons of why people were using it over the other sniper rifles. TLDR, people weren't using it because it was overpowered, people were using it because it was the only viable bolt-action sniper rifle choice. The same thing goes for many of these talents that the player base is scared is going to get nerfed. Things like the Unstoppable Force, things like Patience, all these builds, Berserk and so on, the 377 build. All these builds that are currently working in-game and which their game developer statistics will tell them that it is being overused. Why are people using these builds? Well, the primary reason is because enemies are so damn spongy. If you tried out Heroic yet, if you haven't had a chance to try it out, good god, enemies are so spongy that Heroic difficulty is the definition of sponginess. And so people are forced to use these builds because they are the only viable builds that are working. Perhaps if skill builds were fixed, for example, perhaps if tank builds were fixed, from a statistical point of view, we would see a lot of these builds actually being used instead of the cookie cutter DPS builds right now. So I know that Massive isn't going to hear this, but I just really wanted to say it anyway. I hope that if they make buffs and nerfs, please don't make them just based on your stats. That, for example, everyone is using the P416, so thus the P416 should be nerfed. Please explore deeper from a player's perspective why that player made that logical choice to use that weapon instead of another weapon. It is always going to be a combination of factors. And before I forget, I think we should all give them props for the recent Apparel event. I think they did extremely right with that too. It was just lots of rewards. The apparels that you open with that cash could not be repeated. There was no bullshit time gating or endless grind or whatever. It felt good. It felt great. Apparel was just dropping all over the place, left, right, center. It was very encouraging to play the game. It was motivating, and in fact, it incentivized me to want to actually spend money to support the game, which is a very, very stark difference from how most AAA companies operate right now. I mean, look at this. On the other side, we have Activision and Call of Duty where they're charging you $1 to add a fucking dot to your crosshair. Or in the infamous Anthem that I've already mentioned, they're charging you $8 for a fucking paint job on your suit. I'll just let Angry Joe show it to you guys here because he's the best at what he does.
Get this. I'm not joking. They tried to sell a vinyl for 61,000 credits for a single wrap. It is a recoloring of the armor. Not new armor, not nothing. It is crap! You idiots! You idiots! You absolutely greedy assholes! You morons!
At the end of the day, take care of your customers and your customers will take care of you. So again, there's a lot of criticism going around, there's a lot of concerns going around about the state of the game right now. And most of them are legitimate. The honeymoon period is over and certain things have to be fixed ASAP. But considering all of that, regardless of all of that, I think Massive is doing a fantastic job at communication. I hope they keep up this level of communication, and if they do, I think all of us will continue to support this game till the very end. And that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in DC.